Okay, guys, good morning to everyone. And here we have the first speaker for today from the company called Sunday, Christoph Sachsenhausen, with a lecture about headwinds in hyper-casual, how to win in the current market. Please, Christoph, the stage is yours.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, everyone. I want to talk today about headwinds in hyper-casual. So what does that mean? Right now, when you talk to a lot of people, everyone is saying the same, right? So it is tough to make a new hit game right now. Like no matter who you talk to in the industry, studios, publishing managers, right? Everyone is kind of complaining. It is not like it was 1 year ago. But of course, you never know really, is this actually the truth, right? So what I did is check on this, like, hey, is it actually increasingly difficult to build a hit game? So let's check actually. What I did is I looked at the top 100 downloaded games in the US, and I compared like hyper casual games versus non hyper casual games, and new games that are younger than 6 months and old games that are older than 6 months. And then I compared the first quarter of 2021 to the first quarter of 2022, right? So I want to find out, like, okay, in those games that are out there in the hyper casual, top hyper casual games, how many of them are new ones? How many of them are old ones? How are they performing? So is there actually evidence that there are less hit games, less hyper casual hit games out there? So this is the amount of hit games, hyper casual hit games in the top 100 games in the US, iOS and Android combined. And as you can see in Q1 2021, there were around 45, and half of them were older games, older than 6 months, and half of them were new games, younger than 6 months. And when we compare this now to the last, like to the quarter in 2022 that just passed, we definitely see the overall number has gone down. So, and the most significant drop comes actually from the newer games. So there are still quite a lot of older games in the top 100 games by download, but there are less new games coming into this space. Okay, that's interesting, but it doesn't tell you so much yet. Okay, these new games, like the few new games, they might be super successful, right? It's just the amount is less. But so next, let's take a look at what are the downloads for these hit games. So when we look back 1 year ago, we have around 150 million downloads in the first quarter, and around a 3-to-2 relationship of new games versus old games. So actually, the majority of the downloads were coming from newer games, and then there were some older games that were still holding up really well. And as compared to this quarter now, and we actually see a huge drop there, even more than the one before. So we only have, less than half of the downloads of the new games, and even the older ones, they got a little bit stronger. Like, so older games are still doing really strong, but newer games are having a really hard time at the moment. And then let's compare also, like, what are the average downloads per hyper casual hit game. Last quarter we had, for the older games, around 2.4 million on average in the quarter in the US. So of course, like, internationally would be much more, but this is just focusing on the US. And 3.3 million for newer games, of course, because usually when you launch a game, there's a higher download number, there's a trend, there's virality, and it flattens out. And when we compare it to this quarter, it's actually the same, right? Or almost the same. Old games and new games on a per download basis, although the newer ones are fresher, they are following a trend or whatever, they get the same amount of downloads per game. So there seems to be a problem in the market, it looks like, right? So I think you saw very many uplifting talks today about how great it is to build games and how well the market is doing. But I think, like, when you look at it on a numbers perspective, there are actually some problems going on, and we need to talk about those. So in summary, the amount of new hits in the last quarter dropped by 36%. The amount of total downloads for new hits dropped by more than 50%. And the average downloads per new hit dropped by 33%, while the older cash cows that are out there that are like 6-month-old, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, they're going very, very strong. And I think that also was a sentiment that I picked up on some talks that I listened to yesterday. Right now, a lot of companies are living of their older cash cows, basically, that are already out there for a longer time. And many are having trouble coming up with new cash cows or like with new stuff that works. There's more headwinds, so to say. That's why the talk is labeled like this. So why is it happening? I'm an engineer by my studies, so my nature is that I pick things apart when they don't work. So let's look at the part of the engine that is failing. Like, let's take the hyper casual engine apart. Let's see how the market works, and let's see where the problems are and try to fix them, right? So first of all, this is what I call the hyper casual flywheel. Why is it called like this? Because when you run a hyper casual game on a large scale, you run them mostly on ad networks, SDK networks, right? So a lot of the traffic, like majority of the traffic is coming from there, like only a little bit is coming from social media actually nowadays. And in these SDK networks, you see that 80 or more percent is actually up to 95%, I would say, of the downloads are coming from other hyper casual games. Sure, you also get downloads, from casual games like Subway Surfer, like these huge ones that are out there for a long time. But usually when you run user acquisition campaigns for your hyper casual games, the majority of the downloads you get from other hyper casual games. So in the end, basically, all the users that are playing hyper casual are converting from one game to the next game to the next game to the next game. That's the cycle, basically, right? But of course, there are also some new users coming in through social media, right? Through ads on Instagram, Facebook, and recently, of course, a lot of TikTok is going on. But there's a problem there. And if you remember last year, there was the ATT rollout, right? So app transparency tracking. All of you who develop games for iOS love this dialogue here, right? That pops up on at the beginning of the game. And this basically what Apple did there, it was killing Facebook or Meta's traffic or UA capabilities on iOS, so to say, because from this moment on, Facebook was not able to identify which user they're showing an ad to, right? So the biggest strength that Facebook has is having a lot of data about people, but with the killing of the IDFA and this forced ATT rollout, from there on iOS, they weren't able to really show relevant ads anymore. That's like a blunt statement, but it's actually true on a large scale. And you can see this in Facebook's revenue. You can see it in their yearly report, yearly earnings report. You see how their stock dropped. You see with the new strategies that are coming up about the metaverse, which is completely not related to anything what they're actually doing, just like having some 10-year vision while their business is going down. So what happened is like even this had an impact on the Android CPMs. So every ad impression on Android got more expensive in user acquisition. You can see this here after the rollout of iOS 14.6, where this dialog was activated for everyone, basically, the CPMs on Android got up. So there might be several reasons for this. For example, advertisers shifting their budget to Android because they cannot run effectively on iOS anymore, or that Facebook tries to make up for their margin losses on iOS, and now they're trying to earn the majority of the money on Android. Who knows? We don't really know, but this is the effect that we're seeing. This is, by the way, live data from our tests that we are running on Facebook. So this is actually accurate data that we measured ourselves. And also, I think in the beginning, when TikTok became really popular, especially during the very early COVID month, running ads on TikTok was still very, very cheap because CPMs were really low there. I don't have any data that I can bring there, but now every brand is basically on TikTok. Everyone is doing TikTok advertising. It's nothing new anymore. It's just like part of your stable social media strategy. So there also competition is much higher and probably CPMs are higher as well. So let's take another look at how you monetize then your game, right? So let's say you have Google Ads integrated into your game. And what you will often see is like Google ads are ads for lifestyle products, right? That mean in your gaming experience, like when you see an ad, it might be an ad for a streaming service, for a delivery ad, or for an e-commerce company. So I categorize all of this non-gaming stuff as lifestyle products, right? And that's actually good traffic that we want to have in our game, because you can of course play a game, and then it's great when you get the ad for a delivery service, you order some food there, and then you get back to playing the game. So it's actually not real churn, right? It's just a very effective way of monetization, and super important. Like Facebook ads are, Google ads are super highly valuable in your monetization stack, because they get all of these lifestyle products in that are running ads on Google advertising. But if you follow the stock market a little bit, the Nasdaq, just an example, I mean, everything's down right now, but the Nasdaq dropped by 28% over the last 6 months. So what does it mean? Of course, these companies, like, first of all, there's less money in the market, just by definition. And that also means that these large companies, they have less money to spend on marketing, right? And everything right now is getting a little bit more focused on not so much spending and hype, but getting down to profitability. All the companies that are not running profitable right now on the stock market are having a hard time. They have huge losses. So everyone is trying to rationalize and run a profitable business at the moment. And that means, of course, marketing budgets are going down. So there's less money coming in through these lifestyle apps, and there's less opportunities to monetize your hyper-casual game, basically. Then what else do we have? Of course, we also show ads to casual games and to core games. Right, there's still some conversion going on from hyper casual to like a more mid-core tier of games. But this is from the recent Sensor Tower quarterly report, the first time in the history of the mobile market, the total revenue has shrunk by 6% quarter over quarter. That means, like, compared to Q1 2021 to Q1 2022, the first time in history, the whole revenue, which is mainly in-app purchase based, dropped by 6%. So this is really important, because this, first of all, goes along with the whole climate, with the climate on the stock market, but also there are some effects, of course, that happening during COVID, right? So you see a huge uplift here during COVID, and now everyone is getting back to a more or less normal life. And this, of course, means a shifting player behavior, which then again, like, normalizes this growth curve again. Like, we are past this phase of hyper growth where everyone was locked in at home, and now things are going back to normal. But of course, these games earn less now, so they also have less money to spend on advertising, which means less money that you can earn with your hyper casual games, which is ad monetized, right? So there seems to be a problem in the market. But it's still going on, right? I mean, we still earn money with it all together here. Like, the business is still doing fine. But where's that money actually going, right? I mean, people keep playing it. We keep developing the games. There are, of course, successful hits coming out. So someone must earn money here, right? So where's the money actually going? And actually, what many people overlook, each of these arrows, when you convert one user to another app, has a transaction cost attached to it, right? So when you make a purchase with your Visa card, for example, or when you pay something with PayPal to a business, then you have like a 1 to 2% transaction fee. And it's the same here, like when you move one user through it to another app or through to another game, there's also a transaction fee that is being charged to you, and you don't see it. That's the most important part. It's an invisible transaction fee. And this transaction fee can actually be like 30 to 50%. So it's like some huge inefficiency when you convert a user through an ad to a different app or to a different game. So where is this money actually going? You might have guessed it already, right? It's going to the ad networks, right? So these lovely companies that we run our user acquisition campaign through, and also our monetization. And let's see how they've been doing, right? Remember this charts, how the mobile market has been going down in the recent time. Well, actually, they're doing great. So when you look at AppLovin, their EBITDA, that means not their revenue, but their earnings, their profit, has gone up by 60% in 2021 to 220 million, and Iron Source even more by 87% to almost also 200 million. So it seems like these companies that are in the middle, that are doing all the transactions between the games and between different apps, they are doing really, really great. And of course, both of these guys, they also have their own hyper casual publishing studio, right? So it's not a coincidence they're doing this. And I will go into a little bit more detail why this is happening also. So what does it take to win in this new challenging situation that we have here? We at Sunday, we believe there are 4 core pillars that you need to tackle as a hyper casual studio and especially as a hyper casual publisher, right? I highly believe that you will not be able to survive as a studio or as a publisher if you're not able to tackle these problems in the next 1 or 2 years. So either you will go down or you will be acquired by a far too low sum. So let's get into it. First of all is product excellence. And what you're seeing here is basically what has happened a lot over the last 2 years, I think. Someone is shouting in the industry, hey, this theme is trending, this kind of gameplay is trending, let's all do the trending stuff, and everybody go. Like their publishers, they're sending out this message to their 2,000 studios, and everyone is just trying to hit something, everyone is just trying to do anything. And like the Stormtrooper here is the perfect analogy, shooting out a lot of stuff, very low hit rate, a lot of noise, a lot of stuff going on, but really nothing sticks and not dangerous at all. And of course, like the female runners, that's just a metaphor for anything else, right? So there's been multiplayers, decision gates, money, whatever, right? A lot of things has been tried, a lot of stuff being produced, very low hit rate, very low chance to hit a cash cow actually. So what I think what needs to happen, we need to get rid of the pump and dump, right? So that means first of all, games that are going to the charts for like 1 or 2 weeks and then you never hear of them again and they're running on super low downloads. But also this ideation approach, like, hey, let's all try this idea. Everyone is going in the same direction and trying this stuff, right? What everyone needs to focus on in the next years is, I think, long-term cash cows. And these are, of course, super, like much harder to crack. And there you need a much more strategic approach. They are, of course, doable, but everyone needs to get a little bit smarter about it. So in my understanding, there are 3 aspects that you need to crack to get a cash cow. First of all is the IPM. I already talked about this part in my last talk here at HGC, how we do IPM testing at Sunday and why it is important. So this is basically the conversion rate of the ad. You need an ad with a high conversion rate. And of course, on the other end, you need a game with a high LTV, right? How do you get a high LTV? Either you can show a lot of ads in the first 3 days, but usually these kind of games, that burn out pretty quickly, right? They're mostly like trend based. When I look at all the Squid Game clones that were out there last year, like, of course, you're able to achieve like a super high IPM and a super high LTV in just 3 days, but then they could get completely flat, like nothing else happened after that. What you actually want is, what is much better and much more stable, is a game that generates the LTV over a period of like 14 days, 30 days, or even beyond that. These are the real cash cows that we are seeing, where like 5% to 10% of the player base really continues deep into the levels and keep playing and playing and playing and playing for many, many days. And then, of course, a factor that gets overlooked often is like, what scale actually can we achieve, right? And what I mean with scale is you have these high converting ads, but they're not converting well on every other game. So just as an example from our own experience, our biggest cash cow is Cat Escape with over 70 million downloads now. And what we're seeing, of course, it doesn't have the highest IPM actually. It's not a super high converting game, but it has a very high LTV and it has a huge scale, which means there are a lot of other games out there that the ad works on. So we are able to get ads from many, many other cat-based games, so to say. They are already cat fans, and we can target them basically by targeting the games that are already cat-based. And there's a huge player base out there, and that's a great way how you can get a large scale of players into your game. And this, I think, is where companies need to focus more on in the future. So first of all, what you need for this to crack this is everyone needs the proven ideation framework. And I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. Everybody needs to come up with their own stuff that works for them. But these are the key factors that I think is important. First of all, yes, you need to take care of the best practices. So game design and marketability. These have been talked over like hundreds of times. There are hundreds of videos here from HGC and also other conferences where you get all the best practices, how you make your art style, how you design your first level, what is a good churn rate, how do you get a good marketability in the ad, right? But everybody needs to be aware of that and have their own library of this, and also a library of proven mechanics. What do I mean by that? There are basically hundreds and hundreds of successful implementations of mechanics that work in other games. And what often doesn't work when you come up with a game is when you completely reinvent the wheel, right? It's in 99% of cases, it's better to see, okay, like how, like let's say you want to have a puzzle game with a runner, with a climbing mechanic. So what you should do is not what we should do is like come up with like any idea. Hey, how could climbing look like? I think this is fun. What you should do actually is like, how have others successfully implemented a climbing mechanic in any other game, and then you can see how you can make it work for puzzle, right? So you need this data, you need this inspiration, and of course you shouldn't look at failed prototypes. You need to look at hit games, at big games. It can be hyper casual games, Steam, PC, whatever, right? But look how other people that were really successful with this approach were able to get this mechanic going. And then you can see how you can make this work for your kind of idea. And then you need to have a system to really get replayability into your game, right? So what runners often suffer from is, yes, they are super fun and super engaging for the first 3 levels, but then it's the same stuff over and over, right? So what you need to be aware of, like, you have a mechanic in your game and that works, but now how can you reuse it and put it in different contexts to keep it fresh for 100 levels or more, right? So the most failed prototypes that we see, like projects that are very promising in the beginning from the marketability standpoint, the most reason why they fail because there's no replayability. It's just, yeah, it's fun in an ad and it's fun for maybe like 10 seconds, 1 minute, but then there's nothing left, right? There's no new surprises coming. There's nothing that keeps you going to keep 50 more levels. Then everyone needs a better testing approach. I think that's something I talked about extensively in the last HGC. The video is online, check it out. This is the testing approach that most publishers were doing in the last 2 years. Now a lot of them are switching, but some are still doing it. So, right, having this super easy formula, CPI 30 cents, they run intention 45%, and we got a hit, and let's go, and that's it, right? What I think what needs to happen, or like what the problem is, like I mentioned, in my opinion, Facebook CPI testing is broken because of the rising CPMs that are completely unrealistic. It is better to look at IPM, and then the missing factor when you just do IPM testing is a scalability test. That means how large can your audience can be. The Facebook CPI test, the good thing of what it had when it still worked, it had both combined. Like it had the conversion rate plus like, hey, what is the size of the audience it could work on. But now basically what we need to do is you need to split it up. We are already doing this. So we still run IPM tests on Facebook, but scalability tests we do directly on ad networks. And then, of course, there are much more product metrics that you need to take a look at. So, of course, day 1, but also 3, 7, 14, 30, and so on. Playtime. And then we look a lot at ad impressions, right? So very early in the game when the monetization is not optimized yet, we already put in ads to get a rough understanding, like how many ad impressions can this game generate. And then we assume later like a better CPM, a more realistic CPM, and try to get an understanding how high the LTV can be with this without actually getting the real LTV. And then we look at level 10 progression, right? So as an internal metric, we say like 80% is great. And level churn, I think this was also discussed a lot. Like any churn between like 3 to 5% is pretty good. Everything below, above that, you should really take a look at your levels and try to fix them. We are all putting this out as a product called Sundash. That's our testing dashboard that we started developing at the beginning of the year. It's now in closed beta, still not all the features are in there that we want to have, but we're getting there. But I think by end of Q3, it will be one of the most powerful testing dashboards that are out there in the hyper casual market. And then, of course, the vision beyond that is even more. Then I think what is super crucial in this time of increasing privacy policies by Apple and by Google, you need to get rid of your jungle. Sorry, that's a typo. Your jungle of tools. Everyone has an attribution provider, analytics tool like AppsFlyer and Game Analytics, and then you have your monetization, and it's all somehow clunky, connected by data imports that are going from left or right. The problem there is that the data is not shared on user levels between these tools. And then there are a lot of data inconsistencies, like you need to import the data from left to right, and then you have delays. And this just makes everything that needs to be automated a lot harder. So what everyone needs there in order to automate the whole publishing and UA monetization process, you basically need to work on your own in-house tools. You see a lot of publishers acquiring all of these tools and connecting them for us. For us, we did a different approach through our sister company, Just Track. We have all of these already in-house. It's also part of the Apply group, right? So we are already using these tools that are all connected. Basically, just focus on this one tool that does everything for us, and we can automate everything through this. Then the last, and I think also most important part, is having your own ad demand. What does that mean? So this is the gross revenue that you generate with your game, right? Or your LTV or whatever on a per user basis. And then you have your UA spend. This is your CPI basically, or like everything that you spend on marketing. And when you subtract your UA spend from your gross revenue, you get your net revenue that you're earning, right? So let's say you earn $10,000, but you have $7,000 ad spend. That leaves you with $30,000 that are left. And then you split this usually in the publisher developer relationship. So 50-50, let's say you have a good deal. And this is how it's split up. But like I mentioned, there is an invisible fee. 30% of the revenue, or even more than that, is going to the ad network. You cannot see this number. You will never see this number. But of course, the ad networks are earning money, right? They're huge profit growth that I showed you before. They're not coming from anything. They are coming from the ads that are being shown in your game. And of course, they don't show you exactly how much they're keeping for themselves. So what is a lot better when you have your own ad partners, then you're not relying anymore on the ad network connecting you to these other ad partners. I mean, in the end, they're just charging this amount for, having the technology of showing an ad, but also they have all the signed contracts with the other gaming companies, with the other lifestyle app companies, right? And that's basically they charge you for having this connection you have, because they are owning this ad demand. When you have your own ad demand, you're not relying on this anymore. And that means you have a much higher, like 30% higher gross revenue. This will allow you to spend more on UA by still keeping your margin at 30%, whatever you wanted to have. And this means not only is these parts in absolute much higher, but the whole gross revenue is much higher because you're able to spend much more and you get much more volume. So if you have your own ad demand, that's like a huge bonus to have in the market. And everybody needs to work on this. I think many of the big publishers have them already, like Lion Studios, AppLovin, Supersonic, and Iron Source. Then there are some other publishers that at least don't have their own network, but they have a DSP or something like this. But I think all the companies that won't have this in the future will have a super hard time. Everyone is building their walled garden, basically, and that's the only way how you can earn money in the future. We already have this through our company or a sister company, Edjo, that we are working with. So there is direct ad demand there that we are connecting to our games. All right. So I hope this gives you a good overview of the challenges that are to come in the next years. I'm very sorry that I couldn't bring you a more heartwarming message, but something that's like more like shaking everybody up and saying like, hey, there's a problem, and pointing at it. But I hope, as usual, it's super helpful. And if you have any questions, I hope we have some time left to go through those.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very inspiring and really easygoing presentation about really important and hard to deal with stuff. Thank you so much. I'm afraid we're running out of time, but still we have several questions. I will address them to you. I will actually forward them in the comment chat so you can answer, guys, with text, and we don't miss any question. Um, and please stay on the platform. I believe there will be many who want to have a word with you, probably privately or publicly, or to connect and show you what they got in game development.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was
Thank you
great
so
as
much.
usual, and
Thank
have a
you. Bye
nice rest
bye.
of the conference. See ya.